to this week's edition of World Crisis Radio. I'm your host here, Webster Tarpley in Washington, and the big story this week is the deepening world economic and financial depression. It is the Bush World Economic Depression, brought to you by the deregulators and privatizers of the Austrian school and the Chicago school, who made possible the derivatives bubble of $1.5 quadrillion, the abolition of the firewall between banks and stock jobbers by getting rid of the Glass-Steagall Act with the complicity of Clinton, to be sure, and privatizing Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac when they were government agencies, the litany of deregulation, privatization, anti-big government has created an unprecedented world economic depression. Now, this week we've been listening to the windbag Rush Limbaugh on the radio, and Rush really doesn't believe that there is a depression, and that is one of the general tendencies of reactionary opinion. The free marketeer boys don't like the idea that their much beloved free market, and it's been pretty freed up over the last 40 years of reactionary Republican rule and namby-pamby Democratic rule, such as Carter, who was a disaster, of course, and Clinton, who was not much better. They don't like the idea that their free market has pitched into a bubble, a tremendous casino economy, asset bubble, and it's now coming down. The big story is, of course, that we're inhabiting the inside of a collapsing bubble, and all of the cliches and nostrums that are being dished up about free market, or you'll hear it, prosperity is just around the corner, says Limbaugh. Don't do anything because the recovery is on the way. Prosperity is just around the corner, said Herbert Hoover in 1930, and nothing happened. And prosperity is just around the corner, said Herbert Hoover in 1931, and did virtually nothing. 1932, same story. Prosperity still just around the corner, but no recovery, and lots of people dying, starving, freezing, living under bridges. So it's the wrong approach. There is a depression. Man, oh man, is there a depression. And there's no guarantee that there's going to be a recovery in 2009 or 2010. Quite the contrary. If you're going to guarantee something, you guarantee that there won't be a recovery, given the present bankrupt direction of policy. As long as you're piping money into banks and finance oligarchs and derivative swindlers, there will be no recovery. This is a bottomless pit. There is no bottom in the stock market. There is no plateau at which things magically stabilize. People, of course, are being completely disoriented by the business cycle theory pioneered by von Mises, von Hayek, and the other charlatans and quacks of the Austrian school. So this is not guaranteed. And, of course, when Herbert Hoover and Rush Limbaugh today say prosperity is just around the corner, what they mean is don't do anything. Don't fight the depression. Well, I think the average person thinks the U.S. government ought to fight the depression. Don't just lie there and let the depression wash over you and say, well, this is just how it is in the eternal struggle of yin and yang, because that's what a lot of this stuff is. A lot of your monetarist economics is really a jazzed-up version of Taoism and quite bankrupt. So don't let the depression wash over you. Fight it, and you can fight it. And New Deal methods have shown that they can fight it and defeat it. All kinds of mythology spouting out of Limbaugh and other monetarists on this issue. But let's look at the reality of the depression. Now, we're taping the program here on the 30th of January. So this morning we've had the gross domestic product for the United States in the fourth quarter of '08. Here we see that the gross domestic product, and we'll have to have some strictures on what that means, has been shrinking at the rate of 3.8%, almost 4% per year in the fourth quarter of 2008. So October, November, December of '08, the year just ended, shrinkage of the gross domestic product by 4%. Now, that's bad. It's probably the worst since the Carter aftermath, since the Volcker Depression of 1979 to 1984, out of which came, of course, a big asset bubble, and we've never really quieted down since then. That was the transition, of course, from Volcker to Greenspan in 1987. So this is already bad enough. Now, much less in the news, but I think rather more important, the Department of Labor has a very interesting website which you can see, and it is the mass layoffs statistics. When you are in a violent contraction of production and employment, as we are now, you want to look at the Department of Labor mass layoffs statistics. And here we find the following interesting things. During the month of January, 188,000 jobs have been destroyed already, and the month is not even over yet. 60,000 jobs were destroyed last Monday alone. So we're pushing 200,000 jobs in January. Now, that would actually be better than November, December, when we got up to 500,000 jobs. But, of course, a couple of more days, like this past Monday, and we will meet or surpass the 500,000 jobs lost in November and December of 2008. This is a depression. This is a world economic depression of incalculable intensity, of incalculable proportions. It is a genocidal depression. Fight it now, because it will kill, and it will keep on killing. Economics kills more than war. There's no doubt about it. Ask Robert McNamara, where could you kill the most? At the World Bank IMF or at the Pentagon? At the World Bank IMF. Of course, there's no contest. Economic warfare is the most effective warfare when it comes to killing. So 60,000 jobs lost on one day, last Monday. January 09, 188,000 jobs lost. Let's look back to 2008. Here we find that 2.6 million jobs were annihilated. 2.6 million jobs in 1 year. And at the center of this, there were 21,000 mass layoff events. In other words, 21,000 instances in which a company laid off some plural number of people. I don't know what the limit is on what makes a mass layoff, whether it takes 5 or 10 or 100 or whatever it takes. But mass layoffs accounted for 21,000 incidents and 2.6 million jobs destroyed. In the course of the year, 2.13 million people applied for unemployment benefits the first time around. In the month of December, we find that there were 226,000 jobs lost through such mass layoffs. So this is unquestionably one of the most severe contractions that we've had. And, of course, this is just the beginning. This is not the bottom of the Depression. This is not 1933. This is early in 1930. We've just had the crash of 1929. We had the Bear Stearns last March. Then we had Lehman Brothers in September, AIG in September. We've had various banks blowing up. But by and large, we're just in the beginning of this process. With the Depression has only begun to hit. And, of course, what we're headed for is, I believe, a period of hyperinflation and a period of death agony of the U.S. dollar. Remember, once again, if you think that the crash of 1929 on Wall Street was the big event of the last Depression, you are wrong. This is completely disoriented. The main event was the bankruptcy of the British pound, the Bank of England default on gold payment, September 1931. That's what destroyed the world monetary system. That's the main event, and that is still ahead. Back in a minute on World Crisis Radio.